Management has been practiced in one way or the other since civilization began. The Industrial Revolution that took place in the 18th century brought about a radical change in the industrial sector. And suddenly, the need to develop a more holistic and formal management theory became a necessity. It was against this background a number of thinkers and scholars laid the foundations of modern management theory and practice. Frederick W. Taylor, known as Father of Scientific Management, rested his philosophy on four basic principles. Develop a science for each element of a man's work, which replaces the old rule of thumb method. Scientifically select and then train, teach, and develop the workman, whereas in the past he chose his own work and trained himself as best as he could. Ensure cooperation between workers and management so that all of the work being done is in accordance with the principles of science which has been developed. There is an almost equal division of the work and responsibility between management and workmen. The management takes over all work for which they are better fitted than the workmen, whereas in the past, almost all of the work and greater part of the responsibility were thrown upon the men. Taylor also introduced a wage incentive plan known as differential piece rate system, which involves payment of higher wages to more efficient workers. Taylor developed the concept of functional organization and suggested the substitution of line authority by functional foremanship at the lower levels of the organization structure. Henry L. Gantt worked with Taylor on several projects and was his close associate. Gantt's most famous contribution was the Gantt chart, a system of control and scheduling still popular today. A Gantt chart is a bar chart that provides a visual view of tasks scheduled over time. This chart indicates the tasks to be performed on the vertical axis and time intervals on the horizontal axis. The width of the horizontal bars in the graph shows the duration of each activity. Gantt also modified Taylor's incentive plan by providing guaranteed minimum base wage for workers. Wage refers to the payment for the use of labor. Straight piece rate is the simplest method of wage payment, and under this system, wage is directly proportional to the number of units produced. That is, number of units produced multiplied by the rate for producing one unit will be the wage of the worker. According to the Taylor's differential piece rate system, a standard output is defined. Workers operating below this standard is paid at one rate, and workers crossing the standard is paid at a higher rate. In both these cases, there is no minimum guaranteed base wage. Gantt modified Taylor's incentive plan by providing minimum guaranteed base wage. That is, workers who fail to attain the standard will be paid a guaranteed base wage. Workers who cross the standard will be paid at a higher rate. Frank and Lillian Gilbreth made their contribution to the scientific management movement as a husband and wife team. They pioneered motion studies as a management tool. Using motion picture cameras, they tried to find the most economical ways of doing jobs. They concluded that fatigue could be considerably reduced by lightening the load, spacing the work, and by introducing rest periods. Frank Gilbreth published a series of books describing the best way of laying bricks, handling materials, training apprentices, and improving methods while lowering costs and paying higher wages. Dr. Lillian Gilbreth is often known as the First Lady of Management. Lillian's thesis-turned book, The Psychology of Management, is one of the earliest contributions to understanding the human side of management. Henry Fayol is known as the father of principles of management. One of his key contributions was the 14 principles of management that would aid in setting up and managing organizations. These principles are division of work. That is, work must be divided into smaller units till specialization is achieved. Authority and responsibility. There should be a parity between authority and responsibility. If a subordinate is given responsibility, he should also be given authority to go with it. Discipline, that is, obedience, application, and respect. Unity of command, that is, workers receiving orders from one superior only. Unity of direction, there should be only one plan and one leader for a group of activities having similar objectives. Subordination to general interest. The goals of the organization must take precedence over the interest of individuals or a group of individuals in the organization. Remuneration. Compensation for work done should be fair to both employees and employers. Centralization. Decreasing the role of subordinates in decision making is centralization. Increasing their role is decentralization. The organization must attain a balance between centralization and decentralization. Scalar chain refers to a line of hierarchy of authority. Order refers to arranging and organizing human and physical resources logically and neatly. Equity refers to equal and fair treatment of employees. Stability. In order to provide stability of an organization, long-term commitments must be encouraged. Initiative refers to allowing employees to think through a problem and implement a solution. Unity of effort, that is, keeping the team together using harmony as a basis of strength. Mayo became famous for the Hawthorne studies conducted at the Western Electric Company's Chicago plant beginning in 1927 and running through 1932. The company employed mostly women who assembled telephone equipment. The studies originally was to examine how different work conditions such as levels of lighting, hours of work, time at which breaks were taken, and the length of the breaks affected employee productivity. However, the results were surprising. Mayo and his team found that workers were more responsive to social factors such as the people they worked with on a team and the amount of interest their manager had in their work than the factors they had gone in to inspect. Mayo discovered that the physical condition such as lighting and other factors did not affect productivity as much as the recognition and attention the workers received. Improved performance was due to the workers being observed and not because of the condition changes. This came to be known as Hawthorne effect. The Hawthorne effect refers to the tendency of individuals to work harder and perform better in response to the awareness of being observed. Psychologist Abraham Maslow developed a theory that suggests humans are motivated to satisfy 5 basic needs. Maslow's hierarchy is usually represented as a pyramid. The lowest levels of the pyramid are made up of the most basic needs, while the advanced needs are at the top of the pyramid. Physiological needs include hunger, thirst, shelter, and other bodily needs. Safety needs include security and protection from physical and emotional harm. Social needs include affection, a sense of belonging, acceptance, and friendship. Esteem need is the need to feel good about oneself and getting recognition from others. Self-actualization need is the drive to become what one is capable of becoming. According to Maslow, we first seek to satisfy the lowest level of needs. Once this is done, we seek to satisfy each higher level of need until we have satisfied all the 5 needs. Proposed by Douglas MacGregor in 1950s, Theory X and Theory Y are 2 extreme sets of assumptions about human behavior. Theory X assumes that the average human being has an inherent dislike of work and will avoid it if possible. Because of this human dislike of work, most people must be coerced, or rather forced, controlled, directed, and threatened with punishment to get them to put forth adequate effort toward the achievement of organizational objectives. Theory Y assumes that employees are generally enthusiastic about their work, they are creative and self-directive, and also employees readily accept responsibility. The expenditure of physical and mental effort in work is as natural as play or rest. According to the Theory Y, employees are the most precious asset to the company. The idea behind using letters X and Y, perhaps seem to be using a neutral terminology which does not convey any sense of badness or goodness associated with these theories. Most managers will likely use a mixture of theory X and theory Y. Managers who choose the theory X approach have an authoritarian style of management. On the contrary, managers who choose the theory Y approach have a free rein type of management style. Developed by William O.G. in 1980s, Theory Z emphasizes a strong company philosophy, a distinct organization culture, long-term employment, collective decision-making, and moderately specialized career paths. Theory Z is based on the assumption that employees want to enter into partnership with their employer and colleagues. William O.G. developed Theory Z after making a comparative study of Japanese and American management practices. Theory Z is an integrated model of motivation. The distinguishing features of Theory Z are mutual trust, that is, integrity and openness, long-term employment, informal organization control rather than on superior-subordinate relationship. As against vertical movement of employees, emphasis is on horizontal movement and job rotation. Development of new skills among employees through job enlargement, career planning, training, etc. Collective decision making. Systems approach considers organization as an open system which is made up of a number of subsystems or departments. For example, an organization or a firm may be composed of departments or subsystems like design, production, finance, etc. Further, each department has its subsystems. The various subsystems should be studied in their interrelationships rather than in isolation from each other. Continuous and effective interaction of subsystems helps to attain goals of the larger system. Organizations constantly respond to changes in the internal and external environmental conditions. The systems approach implies that decisions and actions in one subsystem will affect other subsystems and the organization or system as a whole. For example, if the purchasing department does not procure the right quantity and quality of raw material, the production department won't be able to carry out the production, and this in turn will affect the organization as a whole. The contingency approach, often called the situational approach, is based upon the premise that management is situational in nature. All decisions by managers will be affected by the contingencies of a given situation. Management principles are not universal in nature, as there is no best style of management. Management is situational and managerial actions depend upon the environmental circumstances. The contingency theory of management is an extension of systems theory. Organization is an open system made up of subsystems. The behavior of individual subsystems is contingent upon internal and external environmental contingencies. McKinsey 7S model is a tool that analyzes firms' organizational design by looking at 7 key internal elements, namely strategy, structure, systems, shared values, style, staff, and skills, in order to identify if they are effectively aligned and allow organization to achieve its objectives. The 7 interdependent elements are categorized as either hard or soft elements. Hard elements are easier to define or identify, and management can directly influence them. Soft elements, on the other hand, can be more difficult to describe and are less tangible and more influenced by the culture. Strategy is a set of actions formulated by the management, keeping in view the long-term organizational objectives. Structure is the organizational chart of the company. Systems refers to the daily activities and procedures that staff members engage in to get the assigned job done. Shared values, also called as superordinate goals, are the core values of the company that are reflected in the corporate culture and the general work ethic. Style refers to the style of leadership adopted. Staff refers to the employees and their general capabilities. Skill refers to the talents and competencies of the employees. Placing shared values in the middle of the model emphasizes that These values are central to the development of all other critical elements. The common uses of the framework are to facilitate organizational change, to help implement new strategy, to identify how each area may change in future, to facilitate the merger of organizations.